Sarah Martinez walked through the automatic doors of the pharmacy. The bright lights made her tired eyes hurt. She held her baby daughter Emma close to her chest. Emma was 6 months old and had been crying for the last hour. Sarah knew why. The baby was hungry, and there was no formula left at home. Sarah looked at the big clock on the wall. It was almost 11 at night. Most stores were closed, but this pharmacy stayed open all night. She was thankful for that. Emma needed food, and she needed it now. The pharmacy was quiet. Only a few people walked around the aisles. Sarah could hear the soft music playing from the speakers above. Her feet hurt from working all day at the clothing store. She had been standing for 8 hours, helping customers and folding clothes, but she could not rest yet. Emma came first. Emma always came first. Sarah walked to the baby section. She knew exactly where it was. She had been here many times before. The baby formula was on the second shelf. She looked at all the different brands. Some cost more than others. She always bought the cheapest one that Emma would drink. It was not the best, but it was what she could afford. She picked up a can of formula. The price tag said $23.50. Sarah felt her heart beat faster. She hoped she had enough money. She reached into her purse and pulled out her wallet. It was old and brown. The leather was cracking in places. Her ex-husband had given it to her 3 years ago, before everything went wrong. Sarah opened the wallet. Inside were coins. Lots and lots of coins. No paper money. Just quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies. She had been saving every coin for weeks. Every time someone paid with cash at the store, she asked if she could have their change. Every time she found a coin on the street, she picked it up. Every coin in a cup holder, every penny in a pocket when she did laundry, she saved them all. Emma started crying louder. The sound echoed in the quiet store. Sarah bounced her gently and whispered, soft words. "It's okay, baby. Mom is going to get you food. Just wait a little longer." But Sarah was not sure if she had enough coins. She started to count them in her wallet. 1 quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters. The counting was slow. Her hands were shaking a little. She was tired and worried. A man walked past them in the aisle. He looked at Sarah and Emma, then kept walking. Sarah felt embarrassed. She knew how she must look. Her clothes were wrinkled from work. Her hair was messy. She had dark circles under her eyes from not sleeping well. Emma had spit up on Sarah's shirt earlier, and there was still a small stain. Sarah kept counting the coins. She pulled them out of her wallet and held them in her hand. The metal felt cold against her skin. Quarter, quarter, dime, nickel, penny. She counted them twice to make sure. Then she counted them again. $23.47. Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had enough money. Just barely, but enough. She put the coins back in her wallet carefully. She did not want to drop any of them. Emma was still crying. Other people in the store were starting to look at them. Sarah felt their eyes on her. She knew some people got annoyed when babies cried in public places. She tried to calm Emma down, but the baby was hungry. There was nothing Sarah could do until she bought the formula. Sarah picked up the can of formula and held it tight. This can would last about a week if she was careful. If she mixed it with a little more water than the directions said, it might last longer. She had done that before when money was really tight. The baby book said not to do it, but sometimes she had no choice. She walked toward the front of the store. Her steps were slow and careful. Emma was getting heavy in her arms, but Sarah did not mind. She loved holding her daughter. Emma was the most important thing in her world. Everything Sarah did was for Emma. The checkout area had bright lights that were even brighter than the rest of the store. There were 3 cash registers, but only one was open. A teenage boy stood behind the counter. He looked bored and tired. He probably wanted to go home. Sarah got in line behind 2 other people. One man was buying medicine for a cough. The other person was an older woman buying vitamins. Sarah waited patiently. She used the time to count her coins one more time, just to be absolutely sure she had enough. The man with the cough medicine paid with a credit card. Beep, beep, beep. The machine made its sounds. and he was done. Quick and easy. Sarah remembered when she used to pay with credit cards. That was before the divorce. Before her ex-husband left her with all the bills and debts. Before she had to give up their nice apartment and move to a small place with thin walls and noisy neighbors. The older woman paid with cash. Real paper money. She pulled out a $20 bill like it was nothing. Sarah tried to remember the last time she had a $20 bill. It had been months. Now it was Sarah's turn. She walked up to the counter. The teenage cashier looked at her and then at Emma. He smiled a little. "How are you tonight?" he asked. "I'm fine, thank you," Sarah said. Her voice was quiet. She put the can of formula on the counter. The barcode scanner made a beeping sound. The price appeared on the screen. $23.50. Sarah opened her wallet and started to take out the coins. "I'm sorry," she said to the cashier. "I have to pay with change." The cashier nodded. "That's okay, no problem." But Sarah could see that more people had gotten in line behind her. She could feel them waiting. She knew that counting all these coins would take time. A lot of time. And she knew that some people would get impatient. Some people would be annoyed. Some people might even say mean things. But Emma needed food. That was all that mattered. Sarah started to count out the coins, one by one. Quarter by quarter. Dime by dime. Her face grew warm with embarrassment, but she kept counting. For Emma, she would count every single coin. Sarah put the first handful of coins on the counter. The metal made a small clinking sound as the coins hit the hard surface. She started to separate them into groups. All the quarters in one pile. All the dimes in another pile. The nickels and pennies each got their own small piles. The teenage cashier watched her sort the coins. His name tag said Kevin. He looked like he was maybe 17 or 18 years old. Kevin had probably never had to count coins to buy food for a baby. Sarah tried not to think about that. She tried to focus on her task. 1 quarter, Sarah said quietly to herself. 2 quarters. 3 quarters. She moved each coin from one pile to another pile as she counted. Kevin waited patiently. He did not seem annoyed yet, but Sarah knew that would probably change. Behind her, she could hear more people getting in line. Someone cleared their throat loudly. Sarah felt her face get hot. She knew that was a sign that the person was getting impatient. She tried to count faster, but she did not want to make a mistake. If she counted wrong, she might not have enough money. Then what would she do? Emma was still crying in her arms. The baby's cry seemed to get louder in the quiet store. Sarah bounced Emma gently while she counted coins with one hand. It was hard to do both things at once. Some of the coins slipped from her fingers and rolled across the counter. Sorry, Sarah said as she tried to catch the rolling coins. 1 quarter fell off the counter and hit the floor. The sound seemed very loud in the quiet store. Sarah bent down to pick it up, being careful not to drop Emma. Kevin bent down to help her find the coin. "I got it," he said, handing the quarter back to her. He was trying to be nice, but Sarah could see that he was starting to look uncomfortable. The line was getting longer, and his manager would not be happy if it took too long. Sarah stood back up and put the quarter with the others. She started counting again. 4 quarters, 5 quarters, 6 quarters. Each quarter was worth 25 cents. She needed 94 quarters to have enough money. That seemed like so many quarters. The person directly behind her was a middle-aged woman with gray hair. She was holding a bottle of pain medicine and a small bag of candy. The woman kept looking at her watch and sighing. She shifted from one foot to the other. She tapped her fingers on the handle of her shopping basket. "Excuse me," the gray-haired woman said. "How long is this going to take? Some of us have places to be." Sarah felt her face burn with shame. "I'm sorry. I'm going as fast as I can. Maybe." "You should have gone to the bank first," the woman said. Her voice was not kind. "Or used a credit card like a normal person." Sarah wanted to explain that she did not have a credit card anymore. She wanted to tell the woman that she had been to the bank, but they had closed her account when she could not pay the fees. She wanted to say that she was working as hard as she could, but sometimes hard work was not enough. Instead, she just said, "I'm sorry again," and kept counting. Kevin looked at the gray-haired woman. "It's okay," he said. "We're not in a hurry." But Sarah could tell that he was just being polite. She could see the worry in his eyes. He was probably thinking about his manager getting angry. More people joined the line. A man in a business suit checked his phone and looked annoyed. A college student with books under her arm rolled her eyes. An elderly man with a walking cane just stood quietly, but Sarah could feel his impatience too. Sarah kept counting. 20 quarters, 21 quarters, 22 quarters. Her hands were shaking now. Emma was crying harder, and the sound made it difficult to concentrate. Sarah started to lose count. Was that 22 quarters or 23? She had to start over. 1 quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters. She spoke even more quietly now. She did not want everyone to hear her counting. She did not want them to know exactly how poor she was. But of course they already knew. Anyone who paid for baby formula with coins was obviously struggling. The businessman in the suit spoke up. "This is ridiculous. Can't you open another register?" He was talking to Kevin, but his voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm the only cashier tonight," Kevin said. "I'm sorry for the wait." "Well, this is exactly why I shop at the other pharmacy," the businessman said. He was not talking to anyone in particular, but Sarah knew the words were meant for her to hear. She felt smaller and smaller with each comment. Sarah's hands were shaking more now. She dropped 3 quarters and they scattered across the counter. One fell on the floor again. This time she had to put Emma down in the shopping cart to pick up all the coins. Emma cried even louder when Sarah put her down. "Mama's here, baby," Sarah whispered. "I'm right here." But Emma did not understand words yet. She only knew that she was hungry and that her mama seemed upset. The gray-haired woman made a loud noise with her mouth. Tsk, tsk, tsk. It was the sound people make when they are annoyed and want everyone to know it. "This is taking forever." Sarah wanted to disappear. She wanted to grab Emma and run out of the store. But Emma needed the formula. There was no food at home. There was no money to go anywhere else. This was her only choice. She kept counting. 30 quarters. 31 quarters. The pile of counted coins was getting bigger. The pile of uncounted coins was getting smaller. She was making progress, but it felt so slow. Another person joined the line. Then another person. Now there were 7 people waiting behind Sarah. 7 people who all had somewhere else they wanted to be. 7 people who probably thought she should not be allowed to pay with coins. 7 people who were judging her for being poor. "How much more do you have to count?" Kevin asked. He was trying to sound friendly, but Sarah could hear the worry in his voice. "I think about half," Sarah said. She was not sure, but she hoped it was true. The college student with the books groaned. "Seriously? We're going to be here all night." "Maybe she should call someone to bring her real money," said the businessman. "Or come back tomorrow when she's prepared." Sarah felt tears starting to form in her eyes. She blinked hard to keep them from falling. She could not cry in front of all these people. That would make the humiliation complete. She picked up Emma and held her close again. The baby's warm body against hers gave her strength. "I'm doing my best," Sarah said quietly. She was not sure if anyone heard her. Maybe that was better. She kept counting the coins. Each quarter felt heavy in her hand. Not because of the weight, but because of what it represented. Each coin was a reminder of how far she had fallen. Each coin was proof that she could not provide for her daughter the way other mothers could. But each coin was also something else. Each coin was proof that she had not given up. Each coin represented hours of work, moments of hope, determination to keep going. Each coin was a small victory in a life that had very few victories lately. Sarah counted on. For Emma. Always for Emma. 3 people behind the gray-haired woman stood David Chen. He had come to the pharmacy to buy aspirin for a headache. It had been a long day at the office, and he just wanted to get home to his quiet house. But now he found himself watching, something that made him forget all about his headache. David was 52 years old. He had gray hair at his temples and wore a simple blue jacket. To everyone else in line, he looked like just another customer. No one knew that he was the CEO of Chen Grocery Group. No one knew that he owned 15 stores in the city. He preferred it that way. When people knew who he was, they acted differently around him. Tonight, David just wanted to be a regular person, buying regular things. But watching the young mother count coins was making him remember things he had not thought about in years. The woman with the baby looked so tired. David could see the exhaustion in every movement she made. Her shoulders were tight with stress. Her clothes looked like she had been working all day. The baby in her arms was beautiful, but she was crying the way babies cry when they are truly hungry. David watched as the young mother carefully sorted her coins. Her movements were precise and careful. She did not want to make any mistakes. He could see that this money was probably all she had. Every coin mattered. The other people in line were getting more and more impatient. David listened to their complaints and felt embarrassed for them. Did they not see what was happening here? This was not someone trying to be difficult. This was someone doing whatever it took to feed her child. David thought about his own mother. Her name had been Li Chen, and she had come to America from China when David was just 5 years old. She had worked in a laundry during the day and cleaned office buildings at night. Sometimes she had to choose between buying food for David or paying the rent. Sometimes she had to count coins just like this young mother was doing now. David remembered one time when he was 8 years old. His mother had taken him to the grocery store to buy milk and bread. At the checkout, she had pulled out a small cloth bag full of coins. The cashier had been impatient. Other customers had whispered mean things. David's mother had counted every coin twice to make sure she had enough. Her face had been red with embarrassment, but she had held her head high. After they left the store that day, David had asked his mother why people had been so mean. She had knelt down to his level and looked into his eyes. "David," she had said, "some people forget that everyone has struggles. Some people think that having money makes them better than others, but it does not. What makes a person good is how they treat people who have less than they do." David had never forgotten those words. As he built his business over the years, he had tried to remember them. He paid his employees well. He donated money to food banks. He tried to be the kind of person his mother would be proud of. But watching this young mother tonight made him realize that he could do more than just donate money. He could help one person right now, in this moment. The gray-haired woman in front of him was getting more and more angry. She kept looking at her watch and making loud sighs. David wanted to tell her to be quiet, but he did not want to cause more problems for the young mother. 62 quarters, the young mother said quietly to herself. She was about 2/3 done counting. Her baby was still crying. The mother was trying to bounce the baby and count coins at the same time. It was clearly very difficult. David looked at the can of baby formula on the counter. He knew that brand. It was the cheapest one the stores carried. Not the worst quality, but definitely not the best. This mother was buying the cheapest food for her baby, because that was what she could afford. David's heart ached for her. The businessman behind the gray-haired woman was now talking loudly on his phone. "Yeah, I'm stuck in line behind someone who's paying with pennies," he said. "Can you believe it? This is taking forever." He was not trying to keep his voice down. He wanted the young mother to hear him. David felt angry at the businessman. Did he think that being cruel would make the line move faster? Did he think that making this mother feel worse would help anyone? David had met many people like this businessman over the years. People who had money and thought that made them superior to others. The young mother kept counting. 75 quarters. 76 quarters. Her voice was getting quieter and quieter. David could tell that she was trying to disappear, to make herself as small as possible. She was ashamed, and that broke David's heart. David remembered another time from his childhood. He had been 12 years old, and his mother had been promoted to manager at the laundry. She had been so proud. But even with the promotion, money was still tight. One day she had sent David to the corner store to buy rice with a bag of coins she had saved. The store owner had been kind to David. When David had started to count out the coins, the store owner had said, "Don't worry about counting them all, son. I trust you." Then the store owner had given David an extra bag of rice for free. "For your mother," he had said. "She works very hard." David had run home to tell his mother what had happened. She had cried happy tears that day. Not because of the free rice, but because someone had been kind to her son. Someone had seen their struggle and chosen to help instead of judge. That store owner understands what it means to be human, his mother had said. He knows that we all need help sometimes. Remember that, David. When you grow up and have success, remember to be kind to people who are struggling. You never know how much it might mean to them. Now, 40 years later, David was successful beyond what his mother could have ever imagined. He had money, respect, and power. But in this moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was that there was someone in front of him who needed help, and he had the power to give it. The young mother was almost done counting. 90 quarters, 91 quarters. She was so close to having enough money. David could see the relief starting to show on her face. She was going to be able to buy the formula for her baby. But David also saw something else. He saw the shame that would stay with this mother long after she left the store. He saw how the cruel comments from the other customers had hurt her. He saw how small and alone she felt. David made a decision. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his wallet. Inside was a credit card that could buy anything in this store without a second thought. He could end this mother's embarrassment right now. He could turn her shame into gratitude. He could be the kind of person his mother had taught him to be. This teenage cashier was being patient, but David could see that he was getting nervous about the long line. The manager would probably come over soon and ask what was taking so long. That would make things even worse for the young mother. David looked at the mother again. She was counting the last few coins now. 93 quarters, 94 quarters. She was almost done. In just a moment, she would have exactly the right amount of money. She would pay for the formula, take her baby, and leave the store. She would have succeeded in feeding her child, but she would also carry the memory of this humiliation, unless David did something about it. He took a deep breath and prepared to step forward. He was not sure exactly what he would say, but he knew he had to try to help. His mother had taught him that kindness was the most important thing a person could offer. Tonight, he was going to honor her memory by offering kindness to someone who really needed it. Sarah reached the final coins in her pile. 92 quarters, 93 quarters, 94 quarters. She had exactly what she needed. Relief flooded through her body like warm water. Emma would have food tonight. She looked up at Kevin, the teenage cashier. "That's $23.50 exactly," she said. Her voice was quiet but proud. She had done it. Despite all the stares and mean comments, she had counted every coin correctly. Kevin nodded and started to reach for the coins. But before he could touch them, Sarah felt a gentle hand on her shoulder. She turned around, startled. A man with kind eyes and gray hair was standing right behind her. He was not the gray-haired woman who had been complaining. This was someone different, someone she had not noticed before. "Put it on my card," the man said quietly to Kevin. He held out a credit card with his other hand. His voice was calm and gentle, like he was talking to an old friend. Sarah stared at him in confusion. "What?" "No, I can pay. I have the money right. Here." She gestured to the pile of coins on the counter. She had worked so hard to get this money. She had saved every quarter and dime for weeks. She could pay for her own baby's formula. The man smiled at her. It was a warm smile that made his eyes crinkle at the corners. "I know you can pay," he said. "But please let me help. We've all been there." Sarah felt tears starting to form in her eyes again. But these were different tears than before. Before, she had been crying from embarrassment and frustration. Now she was crying because a complete stranger was being kind to her. She could not remember the last time someone had been truly kind to her without wanting something in return. "I don't understand," Sarah said. "Why would you do this? You don't even know me." The man's smile got bigger. "I don't need to know you," he said. "I can see that you're a good mother who loves her baby very much. Sometimes good people need help. There's nothing wrong with that. Kevin was holding the credit card, waiting to see what Sarah would say. The other people in line had gotten quiet. Even the gray-haired woman had stopped complaining. Everyone was watching this unexpected moment of kindness. Sarah looked down at Emma, who had finally stopped crying. The baby was looking up at her with big, trusting eyes. Emma did not understand what was happening, but she could feel that her mother was less stressed. Babies always knew when their parents were upset or calm. "I'll pay you back," Sarah said to the man. "I don't know how, but I will. What's your name? Where do you work? I need to know how to find you." The man shook his head gently. "You don't need to pay me back, just take care of your beautiful baby, that's all I want." Sarah felt like she was in a dream. Things like this did not happen in real life. Strangers did not just appear and solve your problems. There had to be something he wanted from her. There had to be a catch. "Please," Sarah said, "I have to pay you back. I don't take charity." The word charity felt bitter in her mouth. She had promised herself she would never take handouts from anyone. She would work hard and take care of Emma by herself. That was the only way to maintain her dignity. The man stepped closer to her. He spoke very quietly, so that only she could hear. "This is not charity," he said. "This is one person helping another person. My mother used to count coins to buy food for me when I was little. Someone helped her once, and it meant everything to us. Now I want to help you." Sarah looked into the man's eyes. She saw honesty there. She saw kindness. She also saw something else: understanding. This man really did know what it was like to struggle. He was not looking down on her or feeling sorry for her. He was seeing her as an equal who just needed a small hand up. Kevin was still waiting with the credit card. "So should I process this?" he asked. Sarah looked at her pile of coins on the counter. All that counting, all that embarrassment, all those mean looks and cruel comments from the other customers. She could make it all go away by just saying yes to this stranger's kindness, but it was hard for her to say yes. For the past year since her divorce, Sarah had been determined to do everything by herself. She had gotten a job, found an apartment, and taken care of Emma without help from anyone. Accepting help felt like admitting defeat. Emma made a small cooing sound. Sarah looked down at her daughter's face. Emma was the most important thing in the world. Emma's needs came before Sarah's pride. If this kind stranger wanted to help them, maybe Sarah should let him. "Okay," Sarah said quietly. "Thank you." The words felt strange in her mouth. She had not said thank you for something truly meaningful in a very long time. Kevin processed the credit card quickly. Beep, beep, beep. The same sounds as always, but somehow they seemed different now. Happier. The receipt printed out, and Kevin handed it to the man along with his credit card. "Thank you, sir," Kevin said. "That was really nice of you." The man put his credit card back in his wallet. "It was my pleasure," he said. Sarah gathered up her coins and put them back in her wallet. The coins that had seemed so important 5 minutes ago now felt different. They were still her money, money she had worked hard for. But now they could stay in her wallet for another day. Now they could buy diapers or medicine or whatever Emma might need next. Kevin put the can of formula in a small plastic bag and handed it to Sarah. "Here you go," he said with a smile. "Have a good night." Sarah took the bag and held it tight. Inside was food for Emma, food that she had not had to beg for or apply for or prove she deserved, food that had come from the kindness of a stranger. The other people in line started to move forward. The gray-haired woman was next, and she was finally able to buy her pain medicine and candy. The businessman put away his phone and got ready to pay for whatever he was buying. The college student with the books looked less annoyed now. It was as if the stranger's act of kindness had made everyone feel a little bit better. But Sarah was not ready to leave yet. She turned to face the man who had helped her. He was already getting ready to pay for his own items, just a bottle of aspirin and a pack of gum. Simple things. He was clearly just a regular person doing regular shopping, not someone who had planned to rescue a struggling mother tonight. "Wait," Sarah said. "I still don't know your name. How can I thank you properly?" The man finished paying for his aspirin and gum. He looked at Sarah and Emma one more time. "You don't need to thank me," he said. "Just remember this feeling. Someday, when you're in a position to help someone else, I hope you will. That's how kindness works. It goes from person to person, making the world a little bit better." Before Sarah could say anything else, the man walked away. He headed toward the exit with his small bag of purchases. Sarah wanted to follow him, to insist on getting his phone number or address. But Emma was getting tired, and Sarah was exhausted too. It had been a long, difficult day. Instead, Sarah just stood there for a moment, holding her baby and her bag of formula. Around her, the pharmacy continued its normal late-night business. Other customers came and went. Kevin helped the next person, in line. The bright lights hummed overhead just like they had before, but everything felt different now. The world felt like a kinder place than it had an hour ago. There were still good people in it. There were still strangers who cared about each other. There was still hope. Sarah walked quickly through the pharmacy's automatic doors. The cool night air hit her face and she felt more awake than she had all day. Emma was quiet in her arms, finally calm after all the stress inside the store. But Sarah's mind was racing. She could not let that kind stranger just disappear. She looked around the parking lot. There were not many cars since it was so late at night. Most of the spaces were empty. Street lights made circles of yellow light on the dark pavement. Sarah saw the man walking toward a blue car parked about 6 spaces away from the store entrance. "Wait!" Sarah called out. She walked as fast as she could without jarring Emma too much. "Please wait." The man stopped and turned around. He had been putting his keys in the car door, but now he waited for Sarah to catch up to him. Under the parking lot lights, Sarah could see his face more clearly. He had kind eyes and a gentle smile. He looked like someone's father or grandfather, someone safe. "You didn't have to follow me out here," the man said when Sarah reached him. Really, it was just a small thing. Sarah shook her head firmly. No, it wasn't small. Not to me. Not to Emma. She looked down at her baby, who was now sleeping peacefully in her arms. "I need to know how to pay you back. I need your name and phone number, please." The man leaned against his car. He did not seem to be in a hurry anymore. "What's your name?" he asked. "Sarah Martinez," Sarah said immediately. "And this is Emma. She's 6 months old." "It's nice to meet you both," the man said. "I'm David." He did not give his last name, and Sarah noticed that. But she did not want to push him. He had already been so kind. "David, please let me pay you back," Sarah said. "I know $23 might not seem like much to you, but it means everything to me. I don't want you to think I'm someone who just takes things from people." David looked at her carefully. Sarah could tell he was thinking about what to say. Finally, he spoke. "Can I ask you something, Sarah?" "Of course. Do you have a job?" Sarah felt her face get warm. This was the question she hated most. "Yes, I work at Fashion Plus. It's a clothing store at the mall, but it's only part-time, and sometimes I have to miss days when Emma is sick, or when I can't find a babysitter." David nodded like he understood. "How long have you been working there?" "About 8 months, Sarah said. "Since Emma was born. Before that, I was a secretary at a law office, but that was full-time, and after Emma came, I couldn't manage the hours anymore, especially after." She stopped talking. She did not want to tell this stranger about her divorce, about how her ex-husband had left her with all the bills. "After what?" David asked gently. Sarah took a deep breath. For some reason, she felt like she could trust this man. Maybe it was because he had already helped her without asking for anything in return. Maybe it was because his eyes were so kind. Or maybe it was just because she was tired of keeping everything inside. "After my husband left," she said quietly, "he said he wasn't ready to be a father. He said Emma was too much work and too expensive, so he moved out when she was 2 months old. The divorce was final 3 months ago." David's face became serious. "I'm sorry," he said. "That must have been very difficult." "It was," Sarah said. "It still is. He was supposed to pay child support, but he moved to another state and changed his phone number. I have no idea where he is now. My lawyer says it would cost more money to track him down than I would probably get from him anyway. Do you have family who can help? David asked. Sarah shook her head. My parents died in a car accident when I was 22. I don't have any brothers or sisters. And my ex-husband's family, well, they blamed me when he left. They said I should have tried harder to make him stay. David was quiet for a moment. Sarah wondered if she had told him too much. Maybe he was regretting helping her now. Maybe he thought she was just feeling sorry for herself. But when David spoke again, his voice was even kinder than before. You're very brave, Sarah. Taking care of a baby by yourself is not easy. Working and being a single mother, that's one of the hardest things anyone can do. Sarah felt tears in her eyes again. I don't feel brave. Most days I feel like I'm barely keeping my head above water. Like tonight. I had to count coins to buy formula for my baby. What kind of mother does that? A mother who loves her child, David said firmly. A mother who doesn't give up. A mother who does whatever it takes to provide for her family. That's exactly the kind of mother every child should have. Sarah looked down at Emma, who was still sleeping peacefully. Sometimes it was hard for Sarah to believe that she was doing a good job as a mother. She worried constantly that she was not providing enough for Emma, not giving her the kind of life she deserved. It's just so hard, Sarah said. The daycare, where I leave Emma during work, costs almost as much as I make. And my apartment is too expensive, but I can't find anything cheaper that's safe for a baby. And every month there's something new. Last month Emma got an ear infection and I had to take her to the doctor. The medicine cost $60. I had to ask my boss for an advance on my paycheck. David listened to every word. He did not look bored or impatient. He did not look like he was judging her. He just listened like her problems mattered to him. Have you looked for other jobs? David asked. Every day, Sarah said. But most of the good jobs require experience I don't have, or education I can't afford to get right now. And the jobs I am qualified for either don't pay enough or they want someone who can work nights and weekends. I can't do that with Emma. What about family assistance, food stamps, WIC, things like that? Sarah's face got red. I applied for WIC, the program that helps mothers buy food for babies, but there's a waiting list. And for food stamps, they said I make too much money. Can you believe that? Too much money when I'm counting coins to buy formula. David shook his head. The system doesn't always make sense, he said. I keep thinking it will get easier. Sarah said. When Emma gets older and can go to regular daycare instead of infant care, that will cost less. When I can work more hours. When I can maybe go back to school at night and learn new skills. But right now I'm just trying to make it through each day. They stood in the parking lot in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Sarah felt better after talking to someone about her situation. She had not realized how much she needed to tell someone what her life was really like. Her coworkers at the clothing store were nice, but they were all young and single. They did not understand what it was like to be responsible for a tiny human being. Sarah, David said finally, I want to tell you something. When I was a little boy, my mother was in a situation very similar to yours. She was alone with a young child, working hard but still struggling to make ends meet. I remember watching her count coins to buy groceries. I remember her crying when she thought I was asleep because she was so worried about money. Sarah looked at him with new understanding. What happened? How did she make it? She worked very, very hard, David said. She never gave up. And sometimes, when things were really difficult, kind people helped us. Not with huge amounts of money, but with small acts of kindness. A neighbor who watched me when she had to work late. A store owner who let her pay for groceries a few days late. A teacher who gave me free lunch when my mother couldn't afford to pay for it. Did things get better for her? Sarah asked. David smiled. They did. It took time, but they did. She eventually got a better job. I worked hard in school and got scholarships for college. I was able to help her when I got older. She lived to see me become successful, and she was very proud. Sarah felt a spark of hope in her chest. It was a small spark, but it was there. Do you really think things will get better for me and Emma? I do, David said. But I also think you don't have to wait for things to get better. I think you might be surprised how much good can come from just asking for help when you need it. Sarah frowned. I hate asking for help. It makes me feel weak. It's not weak, David said. It's smart and it's brave. Do you know what's really weak? Letting pride get in the way of taking care of your child. Letting stubbornness keep you from accepting kindness from people who want to help. Sarah thought about his words. Maybe he was right. Maybe she had been thinking about this all wrong. Maybe accepting help was not giving up. Maybe it was just being practical. I still want to pay you back for the formula, Sarah said. David smiled. How about this? Instead of paying me back, why don't you promise me something? What? Promise me that when Emma grows up and you're in a better place in life, you'll help someone else who needs it. Someone who's counting coins at a checkout counter, or someone who's struggling to take care of their family. Promise me you'll remember how it felt tonight when a stranger was kind to you. Sarah looked at Emma's peaceful face. She thought about the future, about the woman she wanted Emma to see when she looked at her mother. She thought about the lessons she wanted to teach her daughter about kindness and helping others. I promise, Sarah said, and she meant it with her whole heart. David drove home through the empty streets thinking about Sarah and baby Emma. He lived in a quiet neighborhood about 15 minutes from the pharmacy. His house was big and comfortable, with a garden in the back where he grew tomatoes and roses. It was the kind of house his mother had always dreamed of having when he was a child. When David got home, he sat in his kitchen and drank a cup of tea. The house felt very quiet and very empty. David had never married and had no children of his own. For most of his adult life, he had been too busy building his business to think about having a family. Now, at 52, he sometimes wondered if he had made the right choices. But tonight, instead of feeling lonely, David felt something else. He felt useful. He felt like he had made a real difference in someone's life. Not by writing a check to a charity, but by helping one real person in one real moment of need. David could not stop thinking about Sarah's story. A young mother, working hard, but still struggling to provide basic things for her baby. A woman whose husband had abandoned her when she needed him most. A woman who was too proud to ask for help, but too loving to let her child go hungry. David had met thousands of people in his years as a business owner. He had employees, customers, suppliers, competitors, but most of those relationships were professional. People talked to him because they wanted something from his company. They were polite because he was their boss or their client. Sarah had been different. When she talked to him in the parking lot, she had been completely honest. She had not known who he was or what he could do for her. She had just been grateful for a small act of kindness from a stranger. Her gratitude had been real and pure in a way that David rarely experienced. The next morning, David woke up thinking about Sarah again. He wondered how she was doing. Had Emma slept well after drinking the formula? Had Sarah been able to get some rest? What would she do today to try to make her life better? David ate breakfast and read the newspaper like he did every morning. Then he drove to the corporate headquarters of Chen Grocery Group. The building was modern and clean, with glass walls and comfortable offices. David's office was on the top floor, with a view of the city that stretched for miles. David's assistant, Margaret, brought him his coffee and his daily schedule. Margaret was a woman in her 60s who had worked for David for 15 years. She was organized and efficient, and she knew how to handle all the details that kept David's business running smoothly. "Good morning, Mr. Chen," Margaret said. "You have a board meeting at 10, lunch with the Johnson account at noon, and interviews for the marketing position at 3. "Thank you, Margaret," David said. "Actually, I need you to do something else for me first. Can you ask Linda in Human Resources to come see me this morning?" "Of course," Margaret said. "Should I reschedule anything?" "No, this won't take long," David said. Linda Martinez arrived at David's office an hour later. She was the head of Human Resources for Chen Grocery Group, and she had worked for the company for 8 years. Linda was smart and careful, and David trusted her judgment about hiring and employee matters. "You wanted to see me, Mr. Chen?" Linda asked as she sat down in the chair across from David's desk. Yes, David said. I want you to pull all the recent job applications for administrative positions. Specifically, I'm looking for someone named Sarah Martinez. Linda looked surprised. Sarah Martinez, is she someone you know? David thought about how to answer that question. He did know Sarah in a way, but he also did not want to explain the whole story about meeting her in the pharmacy. That felt too private, too personal to share, even with someone he trusted like Linda. I heard her name mentioned as someone who might be a good fit for our company, David said. I'd like to see her application and consider bringing her in for an interview. Linda nodded. I'll check our files and see what we have. Do you know what position she applied for? I'm not sure, David said. Maybe something entry-level? Administrative assistant, data entry, customer service? Something that would work for a single mother. Linda gave David a curious look. It was unusual for him to ask about specific candidates, especially for entry-level positions. Usually he left those hiring decisions to the department managers and only got involved in senior-level appointments. I'll look into it and get back to you this morning, Linda said. 2 hours later, Linda returned to David's office with a folder in her hand. I found her, she said. Sarah Martinez, age 26. She applied for an administrative assistant position in our customer service department 6 weeks ago. David felt his heart beat faster. Sarah had been looking for a job with his company for weeks. While she was struggling to pay for baby formula with coins, her application had been sitting in a pile somewhere, waiting to be reviewed. What does her application look like? David asked. Linda opened the folder and read from the papers inside. High school diploma, 2 years of college but didn't finish. Previous experience as a secretary at Brownstone Law Firm for 3 years. Excellent references from her supervisor there. She left that job 8 months ago. The reason listed is family circumstances. David knew that family circumstances meant Emma was born, and Sarah couldn't manage a full-time job anymore. What about her interview? David asked. Linda looked confused. She hasn't been called for an interview yet. Her application is still in the review pile. There were over 200 applications for that position. David felt a mix of emotions. He was disappointed that Sarah had been waiting 6 weeks without even getting a chance to interview. But he was also hopeful that maybe he could change that. What does the position pay? David asked. $16 an hour, Linda said. Full benefits after 90 days. Health insurance, dental, vision, vacation time. And there's some flexibility for parents who need to adjust their schedules for childcare. David did some quick math in his head. $16 an hour, full-time, would be about $2,500 a month before taxes. That was probably twice what Sarah was making at the clothing store, and the benefits would be huge for someone with a baby. I want you to call her today and set up an interview, David said. Linda looked even more surprised. Today? Don't you want to review her application first? And shouldn't the customer service manager be involved in this decision? David realized he was moving too fast. If he pushed too hard, people would ask questions he did not want to answer. He needed to be more careful. You're right, David said. Let me look at her application first. Can you leave it with me? Of course, Linda said. She put the folder on David's desk. Should I call her for an interview after you've reviewed it? Yes, David said. If her application looks good, let's bring her in this week. After Linda left, David opened Sarah's application folder. There was her name at the top of the page written in neat handwriting. Sarah Elena Martinez. Address on Maple Street, which David knew was not in the best part of town, but it was safe and close to a good elementary school. David read through her work history. 3 years at the law firm, with responsibilities that included answering phones, scheduling appointments, managing files, and helping with basic legal research. Her supervisor had written a glowing reference letter saying that Sarah was reliable, organized, and excellent with clients. There was a section on the application that asked about special circumstances or scheduling needs. Sarah had written, I am a single mother with a 6-month-old baby. I am available for full-time work but may occasionally need flexibility for childcare emergencies. David appreciated her honesty. Many people might have left that section blank, afraid that mentioning a baby would hurt their chances of getting hired. But Sarah had been upfront about her situation. She was not trying to hide the fact that she was a mother. She was just asking for the same kind of understanding that any good employer should provide. At the bottom of the application was a section for why do you want to work for Chen Grocery Group. Sarah had written, I am looking for a stable job with a company that values hard work and treats employees fairly. I want to build a career that will allow me to provide a good life for my daughter and contribute positively to my community. David read that paragraph 3 times. It was simple and honest, without fancy language or exaggerated claims. Sarah was not trying to impress anyone. She was just trying to find a job that would let her take care of her daughter. David picked up his phone and called Linda back. I've reviewed Sarah Martinez's application, he said. I think she would be a good fit for the company. Please call her today and set up an interview for tomorrow if possible. Tomorrow? Linda asked. That's very fast. Are you sure? I'm sure, David said. Sometimes when you find the right person, you don't want to wait. That afternoon, Linda called Sarah. Sarah was at work at the clothing store, folding shirts and helping customers. When her phone rang, she almost did not answer it because she did not recognize the number, but something told her to pick it up. Hello, this is Sarah, she said quietly, stepping behind the counter so her manager would not see her taking a personal call. Hi Sarah, this is Linda Rodriguez from Chen Grocery Group. I'm calling about the application you submitted for our administrative assistant position. Sarah's heart started beating fast. Sarah woke up early on the morning of her interview. Emma was still sleeping in her crib, making the soft breathing sounds that Sarah loved to listen to. Sarah had been too excited to sleep well. She kept thinking about the interview, about what questions they might ask, about whether she would be good enough for the job. Sarah made coffee and sat at her small kitchen table, looking over the notes she had written the night before. She had researched Chen Grocery Group online and learned that it was a family-owned company that had been in business for over 20 years. They had 15 stores in the city and were known for treating their employees well. The job she was interviewing for was in their corporate office, doing administrative work for the customer service department. Emma woke up at 7 o'clock, hungry and ready to start the day. Sarah fed her the formula that the kind stranger had paid for 2 nights ago. As she watched Emma drink, Sarah felt grateful all over again for that moment of kindness. It seemed like a good sign. Maybe good things really were starting to happen. Sarah's neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, had agreed to watch Emma during the interview. Mrs. Patterson was an elderly woman who lived next door and had always been kind to Sarah and Emma. She had raised 4 children of her own and loved babies. Sarah trusted her completely, but she still felt nervous about leaving Emma with someone else. She had only done it a few times before. At 12:30, Sarah put on her best interview outfit. The blouse was navy blue and the skirt was black. They were not expensive clothes, but they were clean and professional. Sarah looked at herself in the mirror and tried to see what the interviewer would see. A young mother who needed a job. Someone who would work hard if given a chance. Sarah drove to the Chen Grocery Group headquarters in her old car. The car was 10 years old and had over 100,000 miles on it, but it still ran. Sarah had been worried that it might break down on the way to the interview, but it made the trip without any problems. The building was more impressive than Sarah had expected. It was modern and clean, with a nice lobby and friendly receptionist. Sarah gave her name to the woman at the front desk and sat in a comfortable chair to wait. She watched other employees walk through the lobby, all dressed nicely and looking busy and important. Sarah hoped that someday she might be one of them. At exactly 2 o'clock, a woman came to get Sarah from the lobby. Sarah Martinez? I'm Linda Rodriguez from Human Resources. It's nice to meet you. Linda looked professional but friendly. She was probably in her 40s with kind eyes and a warm smile. Sarah felt a little less nervous as they walked toward the elevator. Thank you for calling me for this interview, Sarah said as they rode up to the 3rd floor. I was so surprised when you called. I had applied weeks ago and thought maybe you weren't interested. We get a lot of applications, Linda explained. It takes time to review them all. But when we saw your background and experience, we knew we wanted to meet you. They walked down a hallway with offices on both sides. Sarah could see people working at computers, talking on phones, having meetings. It looked like a busy but pleasant place to work. Everyone seemed focused but not stressed. Linda led Sarah to a conference room with a big table and comfortable chairs. "Please, have a seat. Can I get you some water or coffee?" "Water would be great, thank you," Sarah said. Her mouth felt dry, from nervousness. Linda brought Sarah a bottle of water and sat down across from her. She had a folder with Sarah's application and some other papers. "So, Sarah, tell me a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in working for Chen Grocery Group." Sarah had practiced this answer, but she still felt nervous. "I'm 26 years old and I have a 6-month-old daughter named Emma. I worked as a secretary at a law firm for 3 years before Emma was born, and I really enjoyed that work. I had to leave that job because it was full-time and I couldn't manage the hours with a new baby. For the past 8 months I've been working part-time at a clothing store, but I'm ready to get back to administrative work. I applied to your company because I've heard good things about how you treat your employees, and I'm looking for a stable job where I can grow and build a career." Linda nodded and made some notes. "Tell me about your experience at the law firm. What were your main responsibilities?" Sarah felt more confident talking about her work experience. "I answered phones, scheduled appointments, managed client files, and did basic legal research. I also helped with correspondence and court filings. My supervisor said I was very organized and good with difficult clients. I learned how to handle stressful situations and pay attention to details. Those are exactly the kinds of skills we're looking for," Linda said. "This position would involve similar work, answering customer service calls, managing data, helping with correspondence, and supporting our customer service team. Does that sound like something you'd be interested in?" "Very much," Sarah said. "I enjoy helping people solve problems, and I like work that requires organization and attention to detail." Linda asked several more questions about Sarah's experience, her computer skills, and her availability. Sarah answered honestly, including the fact that she would occasionally need flexibility for childcare emergencies. "I want to be upfront about my situation," Sarah said. "I'm a single mother and Emma is my first priority. But I'm also completely committed to doing excellent work. If you give me this job, I will work harder than anyone else to prove that." "You made the right decision," Linda smiled. "I appreciate your honesty. We have several employees who are parents and we understand that sometimes family needs come first. As long as you're committed to the job and communicate with us about any scheduling issues, we can work with you." Then Linda explained the details of the job. $16 an hour, which was more than Sarah had hoped for. Full benefits after 90 days, including health insurance that would cover both Sarah and Emma. 2 weeks of vacation per year, plus sick days. Flexible scheduling that would allow Sarah to start work at 8:30 instead of 8 o'clock, giving her more time for morning drop-off at daycare. Sarah tried to stay calm, but inside she was celebrating. This job would change everything for her and Emma. She would be able to move to a better apartment. She would be able to stop worrying about money for basic things like food and medicine. She would be able to start planning for the future instead of just surviving day by day. "Do you have any questions for me?" Linda asked. "Just one," Sarah said. "When would you need someone to start?" "As soon as possible," Linda said. "We're actually short-staffed right now, so if we find the right person, we'd like them to start within the next week or 2. The interview lasted about 45 minutes. When it was over, Linda walked Sarah back to the lobby. "Thank you for coming in today," Linda said. "We'll make our decision by the end of the week and let you know." Sarah drove home feeling more hopeful than she had in months. The interview had gone well. Linda had seemed genuinely interested in her qualifications, and the job sounded perfect. But Sarah tried not to get too excited. She had been disappointed before when jobs she thought she might get went to someone else. When Sarah got home, Mrs. Patterson was sitting in the living room holding Emma. The baby was awake and happy, playing with a colorful rattle that Mrs. Patterson had brought from her own house. "How did it go, dear?" Mrs. Patterson asked. "I think it went well," Sarah said, taking Emma from her neighbor's arms. "The woman who interviewed me was very nice, and the job sounds wonderful, but I won't know anything for sure until the end of the week." "Well, I have a good feeling about it," Mrs. Patterson said. "You're a smart, hard-working young woman. Any company would be lucky to have you." That evening, Sarah's manager at the clothing store called to ask if she could work extra hours over the weekend. Sarah said yes, even though she was tired. She needed every dollar she could earn, especially if she might be leaving this job soon for something better. The next 3 days passed slowly. Sarah tried to stay busy with work and taking care of Emma, but she could not stop thinking about the interview. Every time her phone rang, she hoped it might be Linda calling with good news. On Friday afternoon, Sarah was folding clothes at the store when her phone finally rang. The caller ID showed the same number that Linda had called from earlier in the week. Sarah's hands shook as she answered the phone. "Hello, this is Sarah." "Hi, Sarah. This is Linda Rodriguez from Chen Grocery Group. I have some good news for you." Sarah felt her heart stop. "Really? We'd like to offer you the administrative assistant position. You impressed everyone who met you, and we think you'll be a great addition to our team." Sarah had to sit down. She felt dizzy with relief and joy. "Oh my goodness, thank you so much. I accept. When do you need me to start?" "How about Monday?" Linda asked. "That will give you the weekend to give notice at your current job and arrange child care." "Monday is perfect," Sarah said. "Thank you again. You have no idea how much this means to me." After she hung up the phone, Sarah had to step outside behind the store for a moment. She called Mrs. Patterson to tell her the good news, and then she just stood there in the afternoon sunshine, holding her phone and trying to process what had just happened. She had a real job with real benefits and a real future. She could provide for Emma properly now. 6 months later, Sarah Martinez stood in the bathroom mirror of Chen Grocery Group, fixing her hair before the company's annual employee appreciation dinner. She hardly recognized the woman looking back at her. This Sarah looked confident and well-rested. Her clothes were new and professional. Her eyes were bright with happiness instead of clouded with worry. Sarah had been promoted twice since starting at the company. First, she had moved from administrative assistant to customer service coordinator after just 3 months. Then, 2 months ago, she had been promoted to assistant manager of the customer service department. Her salary had increased each time, and now she was making almost 3 times what she had earned at the clothing store. Emma was now 1 year old and thriving in an excellent daycare center near Sarah's work. The daycare was clean and safe, with caring teachers who loved Emma. Sarah no longer had to worry about whether she could afford to pay for Emma's care, or whether she would have to miss work when Emma was sick. The company's health insurance covered both of them completely. Sarah and Emma had moved to a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood. Emma had her own room with a crib that converted to a toddler bed, shelves full of books, and a toy box that was always overflowing. Sarah had her own room with a comfortable bed and a desk where she could work on the night classes she had started taking to finish her college degree. The employee appreciation dinner was being held at a nice hotel downtown. All the employees of Chen Grocery Group were invited to bring their families and celebrate the company's success over the past year. Sarah had been looking forward to this event for weeks. She had bought a new dress and arranged for Mrs. Patterson to babysit Emma for the evening. When Sarah arrived at the hotel, she was amazed by how elegant everything looked. There were flowers on every table, soft music playing, and delicious food being served by waiters in white jackets. Sarah felt proud to be part of a company that treated its employees so well. Sarah found her table and sat with her co-workers from the customer service department. They were all friendly people who had welcomed Sarah from her first day and helped her learn the job quickly. Sarah's supervisor, Jennifer, had become not just a boss, but a real friend. Jennifer was also a single mother, and she had given Sarah advice about everything from daycare options to career planning. "Sarah, you look beautiful tonight," Jennifer said as Sarah sat down. "I love that dress." "Thank you," Sarah said. "I can't believe how fancy this whole event is. Mr. Chen really knows how to treat his employees." Jennifer nodded. "He's a wonderful man, very generous and kind. I've been working here for 6 years, and I've never seen him treat anyone unfairly. He really cares about the people who work for him. As they ate dinner, Sarah looked around the room at all the other employees and their families. There were couples who had worked for the company for decades. There were young people just starting their careers. There were other single parents, like Sarah, who had found stability and hope at Chen Grocery Group. Everyone looked happy and proud to be there. After dinner, there were speeches from different department heads. They talked about the company's growth over the past year, new stores that had opened, and goals for the future. Everyone clapped and cheered at the appropriate moments. Then Jennifer stood up at the microphone. "I'd like to take a moment to recognize some of our outstanding employees from this past year," she said. "These are people who have gone above and beyond in their work and really embodied the values of our company." Jennifer called several names, and each person stood up to receive applause from the crowd. Then she said, "I also want to recognize Sarah Martinez, who joined our customer service team just 6 months ago and has already made an incredible impact. Sarah has received the highest customer satisfaction ratings in the department. She's helped train new employees, and she's been promoted twice because of her excellent work. Sarah, would you please stand up?" Sarah felt her face get warm as she stood up, and everyone clapped for her. She had not expected to be recognized tonight, and she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. 6 months ago, she had been counting coins to buy formula for Emma. Tonight, she was being celebrated for her professional achievements. After the speeches, there was music and dancing. Sarah mostly sat and talked with her coworkers, enjoying the relaxed atmosphere and the chance to get to know people outside of the office environment. She felt truly happy for the first time in over a year. Around 9 o'clock, Jennifer came over to Sarah's table. "Sarah, there's someone I'd like you to meet," she said. "Mr. Chen would like to say hello to you." Sarah looked up and saw Jennifer walking toward their table with an older man in a nice suit. The man had kind eyes and gray hair, and something about him seemed familiar. As he got closer, Sarah's heart started beating faster. She knew that face. She knew those kind eyes. It was David, the stranger from the pharmacy who had paid for Emma's formula 6 months ago. The man who had talked to her in the parking lot and given her hope when she needed it most. But now he was being introduced as Mr. Chen, the owner of the company where Sarah worked. Sarah stood up, feeling dizzy with shock and confusion. David smiled at her with the same warm smile she remembered from that night. "Sarah," Jennifer said, "I'd like you to meet David Chen, our CEO. Mr. Chen, this is Sarah Martinez, the employee I was telling you about." David extended his hand to shake Sarah's hand. "It's very nice to meet you, Sarah," he said, as if they had never met before. "Jennifer has told me wonderful things about your work here." Sarah shook his hand, but she could barely speak. Her mind was racing with questions and emotions. This was David, the kind stranger who had helped her. But he was also Mr. Chen, the CEO of the company that had given her a new life. How was this possible? Was it just a coincidence? "Thank you, Mr. Chen," Sarah managed to say. "I love working here. This company it's been everything to me and my daughter." David's eyes twinkled with something that might have been amusement, but he kept his expression professional. "I'm glad to hear that. We try to take care of our employees here. How is your daughter doing, Emma, isn't it?" Sarah's eyes widened. How did he know Emma's name? Jennifer had never mentioned Emma's name to him, at least not that Sarah knew of. Unless he remembered from that night in the parking lot. "She's doing very well," Sarah said carefully. "She just turned 1 year old last month." "That's wonderful," David said. "The first year can be challenging for single mothers. I'm glad things are going better for you now." Jennifer looked confused. "How did you know Sarah was a single mother?" she asked David. "And how did you know her daughter's name?" David and Sarah looked at each other for a long moment. Sarah could see the truth in his eyes, and she knew that he could see the recognition in hers. "Mr. Chen," Sarah said quietly, "could I speak with you privately for just a moment?" "Of course," David said. He turned to Jennifer. "Would you excuse us for a few minutes?" Jennifer nodded, though she still looked puzzled. David and Sarah walked to a quieter corner of the room, away from the music and conversation. "It's you," Sarah said as soon as they were alone. "You're David from the pharmacy. You paid for Emma's formula that night." David smiled. "Yes, I am. But you're also—" Sarah gestured around the room. "You own this company. You're my boss. You're the reason I got this job." "I'm the CEO, yes," David said. "But you got the job because you were qualified for it. You earned every promotion you've received because of your own hard work and talent." Sarah felt overwhelmed. "I don't understand. When I applied for this job, did you already know who I was? Was the interview just a setup?" David shook his head. "No, it wasn't like that. When I got home that night after meeting you, I couldn't stop thinking about your story. The next day, I asked Human Resources to look through recent applications for someone named Sarah Martinez. Your application had been sitting in a pile for weeks. I asked them to bring you in for an interview, but I didn't tell them why. The decision to hire you was made by Jennifer and the customer service manager. Based on your qualifications, Sarah tried to process this information. So you helped me get the interview, but I got the job on my own." "Exactly," David said. "I just made sure you got a chance to show them what you could do. Everything after that has been your own achievement." Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me who you were that night? Why didn't you tell me you could help me get a job?" David looked thoughtful. "Because that night you needed something different than a job. You needed to know that there were still good people in the world. You needed hope. If I had told you I was a CEO who could hire you, it would have changed the whole interaction. It would have been about business instead of about human kindness." Sarah understood what he meant. That night in the parking lot, David had not been a powerful business owner talking to a potential employee. He had been one human being connecting with another human being in a moment of need. "Also," David continued, "I wanted to see what kind of person you really were. I wanted to see how you would handle the job without knowing that I had any special interest in your success. And you've exceeded every expectation I could have had." Sarah wiped away a tear that had rolled down her cheek.